There are moments where it is what it is, but if that's your mindset always, it's a losing mentality.
You can bend more of your sales reality than you think you can if you just change your mindset around.
Every action should be an intentional action, but that's the winning side of things, right? If you're just going through the motions, that's the unfortunate side of that's a losing behavior.
I don't care if you know for a fact it wasn't your fault. It's your fault. Take that mentality into leadership meetings. Take that mentality into everything you do. It's my fault. I will get better. Because if people can look at you as somebody who doesn't just point fingers, that they just own it, you own your crap, you're going to go a long ways.
Step right up, the jury's in, the courtroom of sales is set to begin. Truth on trial, hear the gavel groan. Let's lay the facts, don't go it alone.
Welcome back to Under Oath, where revenue takes the stand. If you're new here, Under Oath is the definitive podcast for revenue leaders in the legal industry. We unpack the entire revenue engine that powers world-class sales teams, top vendors, and the best law firms. Whether you're in marketing, intake, sales, or you own a firm, Under Oath cross-examines everything that it takes to make a successful revenue team. So welcome back to Defense. First, we have our SVP of Revenue at Rankings, Zach Ramey, who was recently in Disney World. Zach, how we doing?
Doing fabulous, and Universal at the same time, same trip. So, had to hit both this time around.
That's like an extreme park hopper there.
I wouldn't recommend it.
He is suffering silently.
Yeah.
Myself, Scott Knudson, Senior Director of Sales Enablement here at Rankings. I'll be hosting today, of course. I, for the first time, did a backyard movie night with my kids last night. Got a little projector. It was a real delight. I recommend it. And then, of course, our ringer, Cole Castleberry, the VP of Sales at Rankings. Cole, welcome.
Hello, everybody. I did not go to Disney World, nor did I do a backyard movie theater setup. I was just honey-holed inside because it was raining in Kentucky all week. So,
And what's the fit on the jacket today, Cole?
this is a shirt from Buck Mason. A little suede number here,
For those who watch the show, Cole has impeccable taste.
I don't know about that, but
and so I will, as often as I can, call out his fits. Let's hop into the topic for today. Court is now in session. The topic for today, gentlemen, habits of winners and losers. We're, of course, in a revenue engine. We're around winners and losers all the time. We've had a long career of sales. We've seen what it takes for individual contributors, middle management leaders, and executives to be the best, to be those kinds of people we say they're winners. And we've seen the other side, the people who they didn't have what it takes. Maybe they were winning for a minute, but something happened, something changed, or maybe they just have never been able to get over the hump. Unfortunately, we call those losers. Can we unpack that a little bit? Can we dissect? What have you seen? What are the habits that tend to emerge from those winners, and what can we help people can maybe avoid some of those habits of losers and adopt some of those habits of winners? So that's the topic for today. I want to start with you, Zach. So our first section is what we call opening statements. And that's where we take a learning kind of specific to our role. In Zach's case, he's the SVP of Revenue at Rankings. What's something you've learned, Zach, in your role as a dynamic leader, that you can pick one, a winner or a loser or both? What's something that you've learned just about those kinds of habits in general that's applicable to your role?
Yeah, I actually love this topic because I don't think it gets talked about enough. Truthfully, I think that a lot of people, today's age feel like everybody's a winner and you can always win in some way. And I don't subscribe to that at all. I think for us at Rankings, I always want to find people that winning is the only option, right? Like for everything we do, if we do not win, then we are going to do everything it takes to win the next time. We're not finding things that, that went well and that was good. Like finding these almost like participation trophies. I'll call it what it is. I'm not a fan of it. I think that when you're, especially in sales, you want to be surrounded by people who want to be the best every single month. And when you become the best, the next month you come in to beat your best that you did last month, right? Like you have to have that kind of mentality, or you're just going to be in a position where you're going to get beat because somebody out there inevitably is going to want it more than you do. What are you going to do to keep it? So I always want to be surrounded by winners. There are losers, there are winners. The cool thing is when you do lose, you still get another chance to go be a winner again.
That's right. Yeah, I think what's nice about that is so much of that really comes down to that hunger, right? Like you can win, and I think you kind of alluded to it. You can kind of trip into it and be like, "Oh, look at that, we won this month." It's like that's not what we're talking about, right? It's kind of the intensity of like, what does it take to win? You know, am I geared towards that?
I think a lot of times, and Cole can definitely speak to this with me, is whenever you have somebody who wins, somebody who does it often doesn't look at it as a win. It's, oh God, how do I keep it? Right? What am I going to do next month to ensure I don't get beat? Because winning is an obsession. We talk about obsession a lot on this podcast, and winning is no different. You want to be obsessed with winning. I want to be obsessed with being number one. It's not about the money. It's the accolade of I am the best and I'm going to keep it. And in sales, I think that's one of the most important traits.
That's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about winning or what winning looks like and characteristics is winners typically feel like it's never enough, right? Even when you do hit a goal, it's never enough. It wasn't a big enough target. I didn't do as much as I could. I could have closed these other three things when we're looking at sales specifically. And I think that's what truly makes a winner is maybe it's never being satisfied. And that's what carries them to those new heights, right? So that's the first thing I always think of. Yeah.
Cole, you're the VP of Sales. You work a lot in the trenches with AEs. You probably see those habits, day to day. What have you noticed that tends to be habits, right? Like what are the things that you kind of see those people who win kind of are doing day in and day out? Like what's something specific maybe recently or in your current capacity you've identified as like that's a winning habit?
Yeah. So first I'll start off by saying I'm very fortunate in my seat to truly be surrounded by winners. I feel like everyone that works with us embodies that mindset of winning and hunger and trying to get to the next level. So it makes it really easy to notice these traits because everyone possesses them. I mentioned one that I just said, and I'll say it again, but I think that hunger to always be better, that never enough mentality, that's definitely something I notice, that it doesn't matter what goal you hit. It's how do I beat it? How do I get better? I also think the main component when we look at sales is really intentional purpose with everything you do, right? If you go into a call, it's not just showing up and saying, I haven't looked at a single thing. It's entering the call with a purpose and a tactic and a strategy with every interaction, whether that's the phone call follow-up or the email, sending something like a video component attached to that email. It's very intentional focus with every step. And our team really possesses that and embodies that. And I think that's what builds this winning culture, but also makes that winning personality is just every step of the way you're thinking about how to be the best. And that's just a winning mindset.
Yeah, I love that. I'll give an example of this one. I think is a little more subtle. In my purview, being in sales enablement for so long, I interface with a lot of sales reps, and something I've noticed about especially sellers who tend to win is sellers who tend to win. One of the habits I see is that they communicate with people like me a lot, not in a squeaky wheel sense of like they're complaining, but they are really collaborative with the people who are invested in helping them, right? And so they're giving feedback, they're offering their help and they're being involved, right? There are a lot of people in sales ops and sales enablement and sales management, right, who are constantly thinking about what can we do to help our reps hit their goals, right? That's what we think about is how can we reduce the friction to help our sellers hit the goals. And sometimes there are, I would say a loser habit is just waiting for stuff to happen, right? Keeping the feedback, keeping the communication to themselves, and only kind of soliciting it when it's asked. I see time and time again those folks who say, "Hey, I had a question about this. Hey, I love this. Hey, I saw you made this change. Just wanted to express gratitude for it or provide some feedback for it." Like it's okay if it's like, "Hey, I'm not sure if this was considered right." It can be constructive, but they're just involved in the process. They're invested in what the engine is building, and that to me is just something that I've seen as a winning habit.
I couldn't agree more, Scott. And I'll actually add a point onto there is winners are always seeking criticism. Always. They want to know, what do you see? How can I improve? What would you have done differently? And this goes into your collaborative comment, right? Like, they're looking for that constructive criticism to get better. Because if you're not growing, you're going to get caught. And you cannot just think you are good enough to get you to the next level, whether it's reading books, whether it's listening to podcasts, whether it's having a coach. You have to have those things in your life to stay a winner, or you won't be a winner for long.
Yep, 100%. Okay, we're going to move on to this next section, which we call cross-examination. This is really just a deeper dive into today's topic. I'm going to cross-examine both Zach and Cole on just some of these ideas around winning and losing habits. We sometimes we'll have a guest on and we'll bring them to the stand as well. But want to ask you guys some pointed questions about winning and losing habits. Cole, I want to start with you because I'm sure you've seen this. Have you ever worked with somebody with, we'll call them loser habits, but they found a way to succeed temporarily? What is it that eventually catches up to them in your experience?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because you absolutely see habits that tend to push somebody towards losing, right? And I think a lot of the times it's being in your own head, and overthinking situations, and realizing, and Zach said it best, that even when you lose, there's an opportunity to win. So the longer you sit in your mind and you sulk on a situation, you're furthering your point towards that losing side of things. But so I think overthinking or dwelling in a situation typically can tend towards losing behaviors. But what I see winners do is they act quickly, they course correct, they reapply. One of my favorite things when I think about something that I wish I would have said is reapproaching the conversation with something as simple as, hey, I was thinking about our conversation and I wanted to bring this up that didn't get spoke about the first time. There's always an opportunity to follow up in a conversation or with a call or whatever the situation is. You don't have to dwell on, oh man, I wish I would have said that. Go course correct, right? Go act upon that. Go add extra value. Follow up with an email. Follow up with a video. So those small things of just not acting and dwelling, I think, keep you in a losing category. But fast action, course correction, again, intentionality behind what you're doing are those winning characteristics.
I really like this, Cole, because I think sometimes in the sales process, it can feel a little bit like a bad date. Where you're like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, shouldn't have said that. I kind of feel stupid, right? And in a dating setting, like, you're kind of like, well, I'll try again next time or whatever, right? In the sales setting, it's different, right? Yeah. I like this. I like this example of like, hey, I didn't bring this up, but I really wanted to highlight this. Or, hey, I said this, and I kind of misspoke actually, and I want to call myself out. I want to make sure I'm being clear and straightforward about this. It's actually this, and this is why this is great, and this is why it matters, right? And that kind of approach to a mistake, right? Like a missed shot or something like that. That's where the mindset is. Instead of I'm just going to be in my head about this, and it begins to kind of canker away. You just act on it. You say, okay, yeah, I made a mistake. That's fine. I can fix this.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, that's such an important mentality shift there. Zach, to that degree, right? I know you've been in competitive sports a lot in your life, and this idea of so much of it does seem mental, right? I think about golf and like the yips, right? This like, you should know how to do this, but for whatever reason, you're in your head, right? There's some amount of it where you do want to be in your head, like focused and driven. How do you, I don't know, do you need to compartmentalize those things? How do you balance that like drive to compete without having it kind of consume you and you get lost in the sauce?
I think it's a fine line, and I think if you truly were able to explain that, you'd be a very wealthy person if you could break that down. Because I know a lot of golfers that get the yips, they'd probably pay millions to get rid of them. But for me, I do think it's a compartmentalization, right? Like, because I've seen people so good at the job, but something goes wrong in their home life and it affects the job, right? Something is going so well in the job, but then something derails it over here, right? Like they cannot separate job from personal from this and that. And then that, mentally, like nothing ever is perfect. Like you're always going to be able to point a finger at something. And that's what I was going to follow up on Cole's point, is I think one of the biggest differences between a winner mentality and a loser's mentality is they are able to compartmentalize it and say, I'll do better next time, right? I'm going to go find out why this happened and I'm going to get better from it. Loser mentality is, oh, poor me, right? Point at this. Well, if that would have been better, or if this would have been better, or if that didn't happen, or if this would have happened, that's a loser mentality. Every single day that I'm surrounded by the winners that we have, they get up in the morning, they look in the mirror, and that's the person that's responsible for the day ahead. Whether you win or lose, I'm the person that's responsible. And people that can own that mentality go the furthest because those people are looking at the things that they can control, nothing else. Did I ask for help? Did I implement that help? Did I look at how my personal life's going? Did I look at how my professional life's going? They are in control and nobody else is going to stop them from that. And that's who I want to be surrounded with, is I don't point fingers. I point it back at myself. What could I have done differently?
Yeah, love that. Cole, what about you? You see reps all the time. They're in a funk. They're in their head. What advice would you give to them to say, like, hey, like, other than just like, hey, decide to not be in a funk, right?
That's the first one. But
yeah, it's just hey, stop
hey,
it.
Stop.
What have you found to be a good wisdom in getting out of that funk and getting back on, because a lot of times it's not like, hey, you just forgot how to sell, right? Like,
yeah,
you're probably doing a lot of the basics and a lot of things right, but for whatever reason you're off course. What advice do you typically tend to give?
Yeah, this is a common conversation and one of my favorite conversations, because I think there's a really easy way to overcome these situations, which if you're not winning in one area, go win in another. I'll use a specific example that applies to the BDR world, right? BDRs, their sole goal is to bring held appointments to the table to get sets. Some people go through a week and they're not finding a set, but you know what you can win at? Your activity. You can step it up and you can do more. You can apply more effort and you can go win. You can go set a new record with the most amount of dials that are there. You can get creative and send a really customized Loom to a prospect, right? Then Loom is a video tool, and I've referenced it several times. And hint, if you're not using video, use video. But I think it's just focusing on controllables and finding another way to win, because typically, and especially when you lean towards an activity side of things, that activity pays off with wins, right? If you're not getting a set and you put in more effort and you go set a new record, your mindset shifts because you get a win, right? There's a reason why there's this in sales, we talk about breaking the ice or breaking the seal. It takes that first one to get the ball rolling. There's not an actual science behind that, but for whatever reason, right, when you get that first sale, the next 6 pile on, right? Or it's the same thing when someone lines up at a grocery store. You see one person in line, next thing you know, there's 15 people in line. I don't know why that happens, but when you start a winning cycle and you just go win elsewhere, the wins continue to follow. So the easiest thing I tell people to do is just go find another way to win.
That's because momentum is a real thing. Like, momentum trumps everything else. And for any sales leaders that listen to this, what I would tell them to seeking out a loser mentality, people that are behind in BDR world specifically, is you start seeing them dial to a minimum rather than going above. You say you have a 50 dial minimum for a day and somebody hasn't had that set for a week, and you see 5 days in a row of 50 dials because that was the minimum to keep my job. That's a loser mentality. That's somebody who's stuck in it more than you could ever imagine.
That actually tees up nicely to my next question, which is, some of these loser mentality habits, some of these things are signaled, right? Like you said, Zach, you can kind of, hang on, this is signaling something wrong. What are some other signals like that should sound some alarm bells in sales leadership?
I could speak on our world. We're in a virtual environment, right? So I don't get to see each other face to face, except for right now. Quick call out. It's great seeing Zach here face to face in the room. But in our world of Zoom, we do a lot of interaction through Slack as our communication channel. A quick signal for me is somebody who is heavy in engagement starts to trickle off. You start seeing their name pop up less and less and less. That's usually a signal that something's going wrong. And it doesn't mean they're necessarily in a loser behavior, but they're likely behind in an area. So they feel like their name showing up less might be a I don't know what that reason is, but that's a quick signal for me of if somebody's in a losing mindset, they stop interacting. And again, so just go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I would think and I look at this because I'll message Cole about it all the time. I'll be like, "What's wrong with X?"
Yeah.
And what typically sets it for me is people who stop cheering on their teammates. Whenever people aren't cheering on the winning that's happening on the team for somebody else, is normally a massive red flag to me, because our team has built a culture. We win together, we lose together. One band, one sound is the motto. And I can always tell somebody who normally is so quick to like it or comment on it that fades. There's something wrong there. And that's a huge tell for me, is when somebody stops engaging.
Yeah, I think a lot of the themes I'm hearing here are, it's kind of this around momentum, right? What you do, even what you do when you're winning, right? That shouldn't really change, even if you're not winning, like, even if you're not in first place, right? Like, you should be just as engaged, you should be just as involved, right? It's all of a sudden these things all start to stack up on each other, and they say like, oh, I'm not participating, I don't see my name anymore, I'm getting down on myself. And believe it or not, that reflects in the way that you talk to customers, right? Talk to prospects. I think that's one thing that often gets overlooked. This is something I would train on a lot with sellers, is, you don't have the benefit of knocking on someone's door, shaking their hand, having your back straight, right? Making eye contact. These are all, things, this personal contact that you have all these advantages when you're trying to sell someone something. Over the phone, especially in our world where we do, predominantly inside sales, you don't get any of that, right? You get their vocal inflection, their tone, their kind of general phone confidence, and that's it, right? And then their general, acumen or ability to communicate, right? And so you don't realize how you feel just standing up, smiling, like being positive, comes across in your voice. And so if you don't think that has an impact on when you're selling, like, it absolutely does, especially when you're behind, you're behind the 8 ball, when you're behind in your number. You should be going out of your way to be like, what can I do to offset this thing that I know is going to be creeping in, which is like, I'm worried that I'm not going to close this next deal. It's been a while since I got a set. I'm nervous about it, right? Go stand up. Go, like, I would tell people, like, if you go do a dial blitz, go watch some funny TikToks or watch an episode of The Office, like, clear your mind, like, get out of it and then hop back into it, right? Like, whatever you need to do to just like clear the palate, instead of just being like, it's been 100 calls, I haven't talked to anybody, I'm not going to talk to this next person, right? And then somebody answers and you're like, like, you're totally caught off guard, right? Like, you just need to do everything you can to combat that, because that's one of the few things you can control when you're selling over the phone.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the intentionality piece. The example you just said of making a dial and they answer and you're caught off guard. You're just dialing at that point, right? You're not being intentional. You're not reaching out to this person with your goal or prepared. If you're surprised that they answered the phone, you were literally just clicking call, So
right,
every action should be an intentional action, but that's the winning side of things, right? If you're just going through the motions, the unfortunate side is that's a losing behavior, right?
I think another thing to call out here is everybody is going to go through these losing moments.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, I think that's one of the most important. People don't understand. In sales, you definitely understand if you're in it.
Yeah.
You're not going to win every day.
Yeah.
Like that's just how it goes. What differentiates the good from the great people is the ones that stay in that lull the shortest amount of time. Because everybody gets the lull. It's, am I there for a day? Am I there for 2 days? Right? The difference between the winners and the losers are going to be the ones that the losers stay in it for weeks and months. The winners stay in it for hours or days, right? It's a shorter time frame to get back on track. But the difference is they're going to go back to their fundamentals. They're making more dials. They're calling in front of the mirror to make sure they're smiling. They're asking for constructive criticism. Like, they're seeking it out rather than the, oh, poor me on the other side of it.
I think that's a great call out, because you're absolutely right. There's a reality behind the roller coaster of sales, or just in any position, right? You're going to hit lulls. You're going to have bad days. That's not saying that you're a loser for that happening, right? It's just how you handle that. How do you overcome that situation? What do you do next? How do you shake that? So I think that's a great call out, Zach.
I often think about the 2007 New York Giants, who were 8-6 and ended up beating Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. right? Like you can imagine losing 6 games in the NFL where it's like every game counts. And you're like, well, this for sure isn't going to be our year. And you're going up against Tom Brady, who is one of the greatest of all times, if not the greatest of all time, right? Right? You have all the deck is stacked against you. You got to make it all the way through the playoffs, right? And yet they found a way to win, right? Obviously, that's not going to happen every time, but like the mentality of that team in that era, like I think it's always important to look at those. We've seen it time and time again. Sellers who it seems like they are so far down, like they haven't hit their quota. It's been long enough, and then they just turn it, man. They turn the corner, and all of a sudden you don't remember any of that. And so if you're in that spot right now where you're like, it's just been so long since I've had the momentum to win, like you're never too far behind, right? Like you can always turn the corner. You can always change. You can listen to a podcast and be like, you know what? I'm going to start to adopt some of these habits. To Jordan Peterson, like just start making your bed. Just do something you can control. Win there, and then when it dials. It's like you get to control that. Dial, be the best activity output every single day. You start to control that. Be the best communicator. Have the best attitude. Like all of a sudden, like you can just start winning in all these areas. And then sure enough, right? Like you just don't run into those people who are like winning across the board, and they're like, I just can't sell anything. It just doesn't happen like that.
I think it's a good point, Scott, of just go win at something. And that can be as little as you wake up a little earlier and you go to the gym. Like, right, you start the day off on a good note, right? Like you eat well that day. Like whatever it is, you can go find wins. Again, we talked about it just a minute ago. Momentum. It's a thing. It matters. For me, when I typically go work out later in the day, but whenever I do work out, this morning, Cole and I worked out 7 a.m. this morning, and you just feel better. Like as much as I don't want to be at the gym at 7 o'clock, I feel better though, because I went and I started my day. It makes me eat better throughout the day because I don't want to mess up that good workout that I had, especially after an 8-day Disney hiatus. Lord knows I needed to work out. I needed to eat better. But the point is you stack good decisions. It doesn't just have to be at the job. Good decisions lead into good decisions. I've talked about the quote before in Fanatical Prospecting. It's funny, the luckier I get, or the more I practice, the luckier I get, is the quote. And good decisions turn into luck, right? Because you're prepping for it, you're preparing for it. And I think I think you don't have to just be about the job. You can make other good decisions in your life, and that will flow in.
Yeah, love that. All right, let's move into our final section here. Well, it's our almost final section. We call it Objection. This is where we take kind of a modern convention around the topic. So in this case, kind of a winning habit or losing habit, something that maybe is just generally accepted to be true or obvious, and we object to that. So Cole, I'm going to start with you as far as what's something that people tend to think is true about winning habits or losing habits that you might object to.
Yeah, I'm actually going to object to a phrase that I think is a slippery slope to get caught into, especially around this topic. But the phrase, and I know we've all said it and used it and probably have thought it, but it is what it is. I object to that phrase, especially in the sales world, because there are moments where it is what it is. But if that's your mindset always, it's a losing mentality, right? I miss it. I lost a deal. It is what it is. No, what could we have done better to improve? Where could we have grown? Where could we have done different? Oh, they didn't answer. It is what it is. No, how do we get them back on the phone? What do we do to stand out in front of them, right? If you stay in this is what it is mentality, you will find yourself towards that losing side of things, right? And again, it goes back to the topic that we've talked about several times throughout here, is the intentionality, because you got to go find a way to overcome those situations and to show back up better the next time, or to find a way to overcome whatever objection it is in front of you. So I think it's a classic statement.
I really like that, Cole, because I feel like that, going back to kind of signals of loser mentality, if that's your perception, it's like, it is what it is. Like, people are just like this. There's no way, hey, like, this is how things are. It's like, that's how they are right now. Mm-hmm. With this attitude, like, you can control that. You can change that, right? One of my favorite examples, that's a guy I used to work with, you would ask people, it's like, hey, like, when do you want to make dials, right? And people are like, I don't know, like 9, 11, 2, right? They kind of pick these prime hours, right? What about like 4:00 on a Friday? And it's like, wow, most people are like, I'll do my busy work at that point, right? And he was just so good at, like, he just knew he could get a set. Like, he had full confidence in his ability to get a set. And so, like, he would work on all the stuff, and then at 4:00, he's like, oh, I need to get a set. Yeah, let me just go get a set really quick. And he would just crank through until he got a set. And, like, every time he was able to get one because he was just so confident that he could get one, right? You could say, like, hey, it is what it is. People only answer in the morning. Oh, people are busy. People are driving home. Whatever. It's like, you can make whatever excuse you want. Like, you can bend more of your sales reality than you think you can if you just change your mindset around. So I think you're spot on there, Cole. Zach, what about you? What's an objection you have to habits of winning or habits of losing?
The thing that I object to the most is doing the minimum makes you a winner. And I cannot stand people who think that I just did the minimum expectation. That means I deserve a raise or I deserve a promotion. No, you earned your exact amount of money that you're earning, and you earned the exact job title that you have. That's what I object to. That is not a winning mentality. That is just showing up and being an employee. Winners go above and beyond. Winners are the ones who get promotions. Winners are the ones who get raises. It's not this, I subscribe to, well, I'm only required to do 50. I did 50. You get to keep your exact same pay and the exact same job.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sometimes there's a little bit of like, yeah, I was on the bench of the team that won the championship, and like I was available to play, and it's like, that's great yeah, you're on the bench, that's fine, but like,
you don't get the max contract. Sorry.
Yeah, and you don't get the MVP trophy, right? Like that is the difference, right? Like, you should be thinking like, what can I do to stand out, not what can I do to like maintain what I have. Love that. I'll give one. This is one that a former version of myself would have laughed and been like, "There's no way you believe that," right? And it's this idea.
I know, same. Let's hear former Scott.
Yeah, former Scott was just that much more of a creative at heart, and there was this notion that discipline kills creativity, and I reject that. I object to that idea. I think that some of the most creative and impactfully creative people I know are incredibly disciplined in their craft. This is what I see happens a lot is we'll say, hey, follow this process, do these things. And like, well, I just want to send this like really strategic email and like take my time and like, it's going to be really great. It's like a one-off thing. And it's like, listen, man, I'm all for you having creative freedom in your ability to sell something. You're trying something new. Great. But if you don't have any sort of strict process that you can be disciplined to, like, it doesn't matter how nifty this one-off email is going to be, like, that's not actually going to drive you success. You will have the shortest term success there. Sometimes I think sellers get into this mentality where they think like, I want to sell my way. I just want to do it the way I want to do it. Right. And stop trying to put me in a box. Right. I want to do it my way. And I just think people need to recognize that, like, by putting yourself in a system, right? Like you said, Zach, by going and working out, right? It's not to say like you can't go and do all these other things, right? Like you can't be successful in all these other ways, but you need to make sure that you are applying proven systems and processes, right? And using the tools that you buy and adopting the methodology that you prescribe to, right? And doing all that. And then on top of that, saying, all right, now use that creative brain of yours. Now come up with something amazing, right? Don't do it in spite of it or against it. Like, you need to find a way to merge those things, because the people who have come before you and the people who think about this all the time, they are invested in all of these things, right? And they see the fruits of it. I see it far too often. This is like, I'll just do it my way. Like, and I really do think like you need to be able to say like, no, I'm disciplined in these areas. I have a process. It aligns with the company. And here are the ways in which I do it differently.
I think a lot of people, I'll include myself in this because I was the same way when I was younger. 10 years ago, starting in my sales career, it was my way, right? I can win my way. And what I had to learn quickly to find out that I could have a voice in other rooms that mattered is when you go anywhere that's worth anything and get paid accordingly, is you got to win their way before you can win your way, right? Like, you have to show the people you're working for that I can do this at a high level, and you be seen, and then your opinion starts mattering on, oh, what if we try it this way? What if we try it that way? I've been doing this little extra thing that has helped us out tremendously or helped me tremendously win. And then you get to start helping others. So luckily I got to learn that in my lower 20s, is that if I win the person's way I'm working for first at a high level, they start listening to the ways I want to try. And then you get that investment, because at the end of the day, you want somebody who believes in you enough to let you, in other words, fail a little bit too, because those ways don't always work. And Scott, to your point, people's been here, done that too, right? Once you start talking about the ways you want to try, somebody already might have set the stage for that. That's how we got to our current iteration.
Right. Yeah. And I'll give you a layup here, Zach. We'll move into our closing statements. Just kind of a bumper sticker. One thing to leave with the listeners. I mean, would that be yours? Like, win their way so that you can win your way, or do you want to throw something?
I probably have a different bumper sticker, and I would say it's always my fault. It's always my fault, no matter what. You take that mentality. I don't care if you know for a fact it wasn't your fault. It's your fault. Take that mentality into leadership meetings. Take that mentality into everything you do. It's my fault. I will get better. Because if people can look at you as somebody who doesn't just point fingers, that they just own it, you own your crap, you're going to go a long ways.
Yeah, I think it speaks to that kind of humility tends to put you in these kinds of habits where you say, like, okay, why didn't they sign? Right? I could be like, oh, well, the product wasn't baked, or it was too expensive, or, pick your thing, right? But ultimately, if you look at it like, I didn't provide enough value to offset whatever that reason was, right? And that's the way you're looking at it. And so then you're saying, okay, well, how do I make sure I provide more value, right? And maybe there is a product issue, and you say, okay, maybe I need to go talk to the product people and understand it better, and maybe I need to provide some feedback, or maybe I need to whatever. Maybe I thought I was selling really well, and then I sent my call to a sales coach or somebody, and they're like, this was just okay. And I've been operating under the guise of thinking I was doing really well, right? But I think you're dead on, Zach. That's like, I made a mistake. What is the mistake, and how can I take some ownership of it?
I'll even take it a bit further from like my seat that I'm in today, because I've hired and worked beside of a lot of people that I trust explicitly to make their decisions. You all have autonomy, right? And down the line. And I think it's always my fault is when something comes back that I wasn't a part of that does end up not working out. It was my fault. Like, I take the blame for that. That's my team. It's my responsibility. No matter if I was involved in that decision making or not, because I hired these people and gave them the autonomy, that comes back on me. Right. And I think that is a trickle down just from what you said, all the way down to a BDR calling. Like, I could have done more. I could have done this. It doesn't make a difference. I think if you just can always take in the mentality that it's my fault, I can get better. Where could those things happen? I think that's where you find your biggest success moments.
There's an adage, when it rains, it pours. I think in this context, when you win, right? And it doesn't have to be just in the office, but like win in your marriage, win with your kids, win in learning a new skill, right? Like win in your ability to make good food or whatever, right? Start finding ways to win. And then as you go back to the office, win there, win in your relationships, win in your ability to output, all these areas that you can control. And I find that will inevitably cause you to win in the most important thing, at least in your profession, which is winning in sales, right? Actually closing the deals, bringing home that paycheck, right? So like, winning breeds winning. Find ways to win so that you can kind of inevitably win in the most important areas.
I agree 100% with that, Scott.
Cole, what about you?
I used to have an LED sign on my wall that said this, and it applies to our entire conversation, because it's all about the mental, and it's mindset matters. The way you think about something is the way it'll be, right? If you sulk in the piece and you tell yourself that it's everyone else's fault, or it's everything else's fault, and you don't take ownership of your own work, that'll impact you, right? If you go into a call saying they're not going to answer, I'm not going to get this closed, or I'm not going to get the sale, you likely won't, right? I think energy and the way you think about things absolutely carries to like an end result. So if you go in with the right mindset, the right intentionality, your mindset truly does matter, and it's all about how you think about a situation. Zach said it, winners stay in a lull for hours or a couple days, not months, right? That's a mindset piece. They're thinking their way out of it, and they know what it takes for them to get out of that hole or that rut. So mindset matters.
Love it. Okay, gentlemen, this has been a great episode about the habits of winners and losers. If you want to help support the show, we'd love that. Rate us on iTunes, Spotify, watch us on YouTube, share clips on LinkedIn. Reach out to us if you want to give us some feedback or give us a topic to discuss. You want to hear from our perspectives as a body of leaders currently building a growing revenue engine. If you're out there doing that too and would love to have us break down the topic, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to the show. But that's going to do it for today. Court is adjourned.